Hello, how are you? Ready for the last chapter, chapter 15? I'm ready. Super excited that we made it and we're in the end. Um, so, we're gonna talk here about the special senses. Remember, we have the general senses, which are the sensory receptors that are around our body, in our muscles, in our skin, in our viscera. Those are the general senses, the general sensory information that is sent to the brain. And then we have the special senses. So, which are the special senses? We have vision, taste, smell, hearing, and close to the hearing organ, you also have the equilibrium. Okay? So these are our senses, our five senses. So before we continue, let me just show you the learning objectives for today. We're going to start talking about the eye, accessory structures, the extrinsic eye muscles. We don't need to know their names, but I'm going to mention the cranial nerves that innervates them. And then we're going to talk about the eyeball structures, a few conditions, how we see color, some other conditions related to near and far vision, light and dark adaptation, and then we're going to move quickly through olfactory epithelium, so our sense of smell, our sense of taste by the taste buds in the tongue and in the mouth, and then we're going to talk a little more in detail about our ear structures. And then we're done. Okay? So let's start by talking about the eye. So I want to start by showing you this picture that shows you the eye and the accessory structures mostly. So the accessory structures of the eye are our eyebrow, which mostly protect, because anywhere you have hair, it's some type of protection for the eye. And then you have the eyelid, which is a much thicker and very important protector for the eye, and the eyelashes. So now let's talk about how eyelid and eyelashes work. You have eyelid, when you blink your eyes, the eyelid spreads a secretion that is produced by tarsal glands that I'm going to show you in 1 minute. Tarsal glands are present, there is another better picture to show you, in the eyelid, okay? And the follicles where the eyelashes comes from also has secretions that help. There are different types of oily secretion that come from the eyelid that help to lubricate the eye, okay? And in the eyelid is also where you have the lacrimal gland. Okay, so I'm going to show you that in a minute. And then you have here the lacrimal caruncle that is also important for secretion of oily structure or oily substances. And the eye that we're going to talk in details in 1 minute. So if you look at a sagittal section of your eye, you can see the eyelid here, right? So the inner part of the eyelid is covered by the palpebral conjunctiva. This here is the tarsal plate. It's a structure that has the tarsal glands. And the tarsal glands produce oil. Okay? This oil is what I was telling you that lubricates the front of the eyeball. The continuation of the palpebral conjunctiva is the bulbar conjunctiva, and that is what covers the frontal part of the sclera, which is the white part of your eye. Bulbar conjunctiva does not cover the cornea, okay? And what else I want to show you from here? Oh, look at our friend muscle here, orbicularis oculi. Remember, we learned this muscle that helps you to close the eye. What else I want to tell you from here? The eyelashes that I mentioned before, they have these follicles, and these follicles are other than just secretion of oil. They're super innervated. what does that help you? It gives you a very sensitive feeling in the eye. That's why when there's just a blow of air in your eye, you have the tendency to blink because of these receptors on the root of the eyelashes that help you to blink really quickly. Okay, so these are all sensory information that are not voluntary, right? You would blink without thinking. What else I want to tell you from this? I think we're pretty good with the lacrimal structures other than here. So now we're going to talk about another accessory structure for the eye is the lacrimal apparatus. So the lacrimal apparatus is made of a gland called lacrimal gland that is on top of your eyelid. Okay, it's like here. Okay, if you touch here, you're touching where your lacrimal gland is. And the ducts open to the edge of the eyelid. That's where not the edge, like the inner part of the eyelid. This is where you cry from. So your tears come from here and then they flow your eyes. And here you have the nasolacrimal duct and the lacrimal canaliculus. So the canaliculus is the pore, it's like a little opening, and this is the duct, right? This duct opens to your nose. This is why when you cry, you go, right? Because the tears, other than just getting out of your eye, they also get in this little lacrimal canaliculus through the nasolacrimal duct to your nose. The lacrimal secretion or tear is a diluted saline solution with mucus, antibodies, and antibacterial lysozyme. Lysozyme is a substance that kills bacteria. Okay, so this is what I needed you to know from the accessory structures of the eye. So now the muscles. The muscles are extrinsic. They're called extrinsic eye muscles. So these are all skeletal muscles. You don't need to know their names. I just want you to see how many you have here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these muscles. And most of them are innervated by the oculomotor nerve, right? That cranial nerve. And the other ones, remember you have the trochlear nerve that innervates this part here and this muscle. And you also have the abducens nerve that innervates the lateral rectus muscle, which is this one. So 3 different nerves to innervate these 6 muscles, okay? Diplopia or double vision occurs when the movement of the external muscles of the 2 eyes are not perfectly coordinated. So now let's talk about the eyeball. The eyeball has 3 main structures that I'm going to point to you: the fibrous, the vascular, and the inner layer. And inside each one of them, we're going to point each individual structure, okay? The eyeball is also filled with humors. Humors are liquids. There are 2 different liquids that we're going to talk about. And the lens is what separates the anterior from the posterior segment. So you have one type of fluid in the anterior segment, one type of fluid in another type of fluid in the posterior segment. So let's start by naming the layers. Anything that you see here that is white, all this white layer here, all over the eye, is called the fibrous layer. So the fibrous layer is made of, where is it? The sclera. That's the fibrous layer, right? I'm going to write here F for fibrous layer. Sclera and cornea. And that's pretty much it. So you can see part of the sclera in the anterior part of your eye when you look at somebody's eyes, which is this part here, right? And then the cornea is this part here. So now let me see if I get another color so we can talk about the red. Anything that is red here, going from iris, ciliary body, and choroid layer. These are all vascular layer, okay? Anything that you see in red. So what is the vascular layer? So let's talk about the iris first. The iris, which is here, in here, right, is like a flattened donut. The iris has an opening, that's why we call it flattened donut, and the opening is the pupil, okay? So the opening, the pupil, is where the light goes into your eye, okay? And the light is what makes you see. It's reading from the lights of the objects that allow you to see the objects, okay? The iris is a muscle. Actually, it's two muscles. One muscle allows the iris to open the pupil, pupil dilate. Another muscle allows the iris to constrict the pupil. Okay, so I'm going to show you the muscles from the iris in a minute. The iris has pigments similar to melanin. Is actually melanin produced by melanocytes. Actually, you have melanin in all this layer, okay? And all the choroid, which is supervascular, is also full of pigment. And this pigment, the melanin, helps to absorb light, right? Dark colors are better for light absorption rather than scatter and lose that light that you need to be able to see. Okay, so it helps your vision, the fact that you have this pigmented layer. The fact that people can have dark eyes or light eyes is based on the amount of pigment in the most posterior part of the iris. So the more pigment you have here, the darker is the eye color. So somebody with green or blue eyes do actually have less pigmentation. It's not a blue or a green pigment. It's just less melanin, okay? After the iris, we have this, which is the ciliary body that has a smooth muscle. Iris is also a smooth muscle, right? Non-voluntary. So this smooth muscle pulls this structure here, which is the lens, right? The lens is pulled and stretches by the ciliary body, which has ciliary muscles. These muscles, when they pull and the lens flattens, makes you be able to see better from far. When the lens bulges and it gets more round, makes you see better from close. It's for near vision, okay? And then the continuation of this vascular layer is the choroid. The choroid is full of blood vessels. Can you think how much glucose and energy you need for the next layer, which is this yellow one, which is the retina? Can you think how much energy you need for neurons that are all the time being used for you to see? So this yellow layer here is already part of the inner layer. So the inner layer is actually just the retina. It's everything that you see here in yellow. And the retina is a continuation of what here? Optic nerve, right? The optic nerve is right here. And the optic nerve has, as any good nerve, blood vessels in the middle. And we're going to talk about what else is important in the retina in a minute.